Hey guys, Birdie here, and I am joining you to create your September 2022 Joy Box. This is that fun reversible sign. We have the Happy Halloween on one side with these witches' feet, and then we flip it over and have this really great rustic buffalo plaid hay pumpkin sign on the back. I love items where they serve two purposes. Really helps cut back on storage, right? So this project is super fun. The new technique that we're going to look at is decoupaging with tissue paper, and I've done videos with that in the past on our Facebook page and whatnot, but I thought I would share that with you in the group. So let's talk about what you have. I don't have the insert with me right now, but you have your insert that lists everything that you get. It has the links for the website. It has a link to find the tutorials. And it also has our email address. If you have any issues in regards to your box, your subscription, your payment, etc., please email me at support@redbyrddesigns.com. I'm finding that a lot of people are messaging me via Facebook or my personal account or on Instagram, and things are getting lost. And if we're not friends or if you've never messaged me before there, sometimes those messages get put in spam or requests and I don't see them right away. So it's really important to use the email address so that I can take care of anything you need right away. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. So let's talk about what comes in your box. You've got your paint pack here. We've got lots of colors: white, brown, black, orange, purple, and green. We've got the glue, the 2 makeup sponge, the Mod Podge, and the sanding block. Remember, your paint tray or your tray also serves as a paint tray if you want to use it for that. You've got your tissue paper. This one is in a little baggie, but I think we just put them in the box. You have your baggie of brushes and whatnot. And it might have been packaged a little different than what you see here, simply because this was something we put together like a month ago, and sometimes things change as we're packaging. So the tissue paper for your back or your pumpkin side, and then a baggie of brushes. This month we have the chip brush, the black sponge brush, we have a liner brush, and then your jute comes in your package. And then the main pieces will be shrink wrapped all together. Now we're trying something new this month. We have put in the negative space of the items in the frame. One, to help with shipping. We want to make sure that everything stays in place as it's shipped, and so this was one of the ways that we did that. The other thing is we created what's called little tabs on this. So as you lift this up, there might be pieces that are still stuck to that negative shape or the throwaway shape, right? So what I want you to do is turn it over, and you might see little areas where it didn't cut all the way through. In fact, it did. It just leaves a very, very small amount of wood uncut to keep all the pieces together. That way, when we lift it up off of the laser, everything comes with it and we don't lose any inside of the laser bed. So it helps with shipping. It also helps us be a little bit more efficient when we're putting the packages out. So if you have any pieces that are still stuck to the negative piece, what you're going to do is most likely you can take your finger and just gently push it out, and that will break that little tab off. Kind of think of it like a perforation or it reminds me of the old doll books we used to get as kids, and it had the doll and then the paper dresses, and you had the little tabs, and you broke it out of the cardboard and made the dresses. That's kind of what this is. That's what that reminds me of anyways. We have those little tabs. So you can most likely just push it out, just gently grab the front, grab the back, and kind of wiggle it and press it with your finger on the tab, and it should break away. Now, if it doesn't, and it's a little more tough, you know, wood is all different, so there's going to be variables in there. There might be some that you need to use a pair of scissors or an X-Acto knife. So find the little tab, the little area that's not cut or it's hard to break, and you can take your X-Acto knife and just press it against it, and it should snap the tab, and you're good to go. If it doesn't do that, or if you don't have an X-Acto knife or a box cutter, you can do the same thing with your scissors. Scissors are a little bit wider though, so be careful if it's on a thin piece. You're just gonna kind of bring it along, score that little tab. It's super tiny, guys. You can't even see the tab here. There's a little one there. Again, I'm just gonna lift this up, press it with my fingers, press that with my fingers, and they pop out. So that's something new this month. Let us know what you think. Like I said, it helps us be a little more efficient on the back side of things and helps with the packaging of things. But if it becomes a huge issue, like this one, there's a little tab right there. I'm just going to take it with my finger, press it, and it breaks that piece apart. Let us know right away. All right, so now we have all of our pieces inside here. The next thing is what you're going to need for this kit. So for this, to complete it, obviously your rag, your brushes, or your brush water, and then like an old gift card. This is an old hotel card. But that's going to help us smooth out the tissue paper when we apply that. Other than that, that's really all we're going to need. A pair of scissors if you want to cut down your jute. We did give you extra jute. So, you know, make your hanger as long as you need. We'll cover that when we get to that step. And then you have the scissors to cut off any excess. So there's that. I'm going to put those brushes aside, grab brushes I already have on hand so I don't like to reuse my brushes as much as I can. And my chip brushes in my water. Okay, so let's get started. The first step that you're going to, and you're going to need masking tape. Sorry, I always forget that every month. Forget to mention that. We're going to take our masking tape and we're going to lay it out on our table, sticky side up. And I'm just going to find all of the letters that make up the front words. And I'm going to put them in order on how you read them. This helps me to ensure that I'm painting the right side and I don't have them backwards. All right, so everything is taped up. And now we can get started painting. I'm going to start with the Halloween side. So I'm going to grab the red or the black and the white. Okay. So we've got our paint ready. I'm going to use my black makeup sponge and I'm just going to start painting my background. Now to ensure that I don't get a bunch of paint on the edge of my sign here, I'm taking my brush and brushing from the inside to the out. This will help keep paint off your edges, keep it clean. All right, there's that. And I'm going to grab my frame, just set this up there, and I'm going to grab my makeup sponge. I'm going to cut my makeup sponge in half. So here is the original size. I cut it in half, and then I am able to get multiple uses out of my makeup sponges. So you want to cut yours in half just to have a couple different applicators for the different colors that you might be using. And then we're going to just take a small amount of paint on our applicator, load it up, and then unload it by tapping on your tray or your palette, whatever you're using to put your paint on, and then gently tap the surface. Our goal is to use a small amount of paint so that we don't have paint that falls on the edge or gets pushed onto the edge of our frame here. So keep our edges nice and clean. Doing light coats helps the piece dry faster so that we're able to put our second coat on almost immediately after we're done. Okay, all right, so we've got our frame done. And then the next thing I'm going to paint are all of my letters for the Happy Halloween, because I'm doing those in white as well. So I'm going to bring those letters in using that same makeup sponge since it's already ready to go. We'll just continue with this color. Okay, there's that. Then the next thing I'm going to do is my stars, my bat, and my shoes. Okay, so for the purple and the orange, I'm going to cut my second makeup sponge in half. So I have two applicators, one for orange, one for purple. And I'm just going to do the same thing. We're going to load it up. It's got too much paint here. I can see it globbed on. We want to make sure to tap, 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 and unload it so we have a nice smooth finish. We don't have too much. And then I'm going to do my stars in purple. And I'm actually going to do my bat in purple. I was going to do a little different, but I think I'll just stick with that purple color. I like that. Okay. There we go. And then the socks I'm going to do in purple. So, and as I get close here, because this has got this nice straight edge here, I can just gently, carefully tap right up to the top of the boots. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to take that second sponge and do the orange and do the boots. Now the boots, orange is a color that is low on pigments, so it does take a few coats to cover that. So we'll start with this first coat. It's going to look pretty light colored, which if that's the color of orange you want, you definitely can. So to get the different shades, you can either add white to the purple and orange and kind of play with different shades of purple and orange, or you can add brown to the orange and get a really dark, rich orange. And then for the black, to go darker, you can add just a small amount of black to it if you want to have a darker purple. All right, so for the stripes on the boots, I'm going to paint the little rectangles with white. And again, I just left those off in the original example, not even worrying about them. So if you don't want to paint these tiny little pieces, you don't have to. I'll show you the original again one more time here. So here's the original. They're just hollow. There's nothing in there. If you don't want to paint those and have it look like this, you absolutely can do that. All right, my orange is already dry. So we're going to go with the second coat on that. I don't need a second coat for my purple, but if you do, then pause the video and put your second coat on. Okay, so all of my pieces are painted for the front of the sign. I'm going to start next by distressing the back of the sign. I'm going to grab my, grab your chip brush, and I'm going to, it's pretty wet here. I'm going to make a kind of a gray. So I'm going to go and dip my brush in the white and just a titch in the black and a little bit more. Kind of mix that together to create a gray color. You don't need a lot. We're going to do the dry brush technique. So what that means is there's hardly any paint on here. You can see that there's just a small amount of paint there. And if I touch this, I barely get any paint on my hand. That's your dry brush technique. You don't want to have too much. And actually, let's just go right to left for something different, just to see the difference. So we're just going to go back and forth, lightly brushing our surface. And you can start to see just the very smallest amount of lines there. But it's already starting to look old and rustic, which is what we want. And you don't have to do this step. If you want to have a nice solid black background, then by all means, leave it that way. All right, there's that. And then the next thing you can do is take your sanding block and sand even some of the wood away or the color, so we can create these lines where even that wood starts to poke or peek through. We can just create different areas where that's happening. Okay, so there's that. And then one last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some water. I've got a spray bottle, but you can dip your brush in your water cup and create, do it that way. And just add a little water to your tray. This is a bit much, but I'm going to add some white paint to that and get some really runny white paint here. Using your liner brush, we're going to load it up and then we're going to just tap. I'm going to add some splatters to my background. There we go. Okay. All right, so our background's done for that part. I'm going to distress my frame here, and I'm going to get black on my chip brush and move it around, move that black all around my bristles, make sure that it's, you know, really dry, and then just gently drag it across my frame here. Okay. There we go. So it's just given our edges some black and just the slightest bit of distressing. You can also use your sanding block to distress your edges and reveal some of that wood as well. All right. So now that we've got our background all ready, we can use our glue and start gluing things up. With your super glue, you want to make sure that you're holding it by the seam, not by the tube, because as you release pressure and open it, glue will squirt out. You also want to make sure that you're holding it upright when you turn on your applicator. The applicator inside has a piercer that will open the tube, so you don't have to try and find a needle or anything to open this. As you turn on your applicator or put on your applicator, it will pierce your tube. So we're just going to hold it by the seam upright and then slowly attach your applicator. And you'll hear a little pressure release. And just go nice and slow, and there we go. We'll set that aside, and I'm going to put all my pieces where I want them. So we're going to lay these out. One thing you'll notice is there's no, in this month's box, we left off the score marks on where to place your item. This sign is super fun and relaxed and loose. So having the letters be crooked was kind of the point of this sign. We've got all of our letters that are kind of funky shaped. Some are large, some are smaller than others. And so to just keep it loose and fun, we decided to leave the score marks off, allowing you the flexibility to place your items where you want. All I'm really looking for is to make sure that the space between my N and my H are about the same, and the space between my H and my Y are about the same. And then I'm just going to start gluing it down. And there we go. So now that I've got them somewhat in place, we're going to add a small drop to the tops and the ends, and a small drop in the middle. You do not need to cover the entire surface, just add a drop here and there. Remember, with super glue, you do have about 5 seconds before it starts to set. So you want to move quickly. Make sure that where you're placing it is where you want it, because once it's down, it's pretty set. Now, if you don't like using super glue, you can use your own glue. You can use a Elmer's glue. You can use like an Aleene's tacky glue, a wood glue. Really what you're looking for with a glue is something that will dry clear. You don't want anything that's going to dry yellow, because a lot of times when we're gluing, you know, glue kind of squirts out the edge, or when we're shifting things around, we can see some of that glue left behind. And so it's important to use a glue that is not, that will dry clear. Okay, there we go. So there's that. I'm going to add just a few more items here. I'm going to grab my liner brush. Before we flip it over and work on the other side, I'm going to grab some white and just put some stars out here, a little bit bigger stars than the polka dot. So I'm really just going to do an X, actually, or a plus sign, if you will, however you want to look at that. If you wanted to put some more stars out there, you could. And then I'm going to add a little swoosh on my stars for some highlights. And then I'll add a little swoosh on the top of the bat's wings. And then I'm going to add some dots and some lines for a little touch of whimsy on the socks. And then also I'll add some lines on the boots. So along the top of the boots for a highlight. On the tips here, the toe tips. And then I'm going to add some little dots along the edge for where those shoelaces are. And then wherever you feel you want to add a little more detail, you can add some black lines to it. You can add black dots, however you want to do that. And then that side's done. Well, I almost forgot the inside of my socks. Let me get my socks ready here. So let's see, I kind of want to figure out your socks. So both shoes are the same. So when you're going to place the inside of your sock pieces in, the top two are the same, the second set, the third set, and so on. So it doesn't matter what side you put them on, there's not a difference in that. So I'm just laying out my 4 pieces right next to each other, right next to the sock there. We'll put 1 dot of glue here. Okay, now this side is done. All right, so we're ready to do the other side. And here is where we're gonna work on that tissue paper background. So we're gonna get our tissue paper out and our Mod Podge. So I've got my black sponge brush, I've cleaned it off, and I'm going to use it to apply the Mod Podge. So what we want to do is just apply a generous amount of Mod Podge to the entire surface. You want to work quickly here because it will dry fast, And so we're trying to be speedy here. You can put the Mod Podge, dump it right on your surface. Let's see, I didn't wash my brush very well. It's already starting to get tacky. All right, once you've got that completely covered, you're going to take your tissue paper. And it's going to be a little big, but that's okay. And what we want to do is just make sure it's straight on. So I'm lining up my top piece, and then I'm going to take it and smooth it out. Kind of pull from the bottom to create a nice smooth surface. Pulling the edges while you smooth it out. There we go. Okay. And then just gently smooth it out from the inside out. Now, when tissue paper gets wet, it's very susceptible to tear. So you really want to be careful with this next step. I'm taking my old card here and I'm gently smoothing out as many wrinkles as I can. And I'm going to show you here in a minute that there are quite a few wrinkles still there, but that's okay. As we start to distress it, it's going to look great. So I'm just going to cut off my excess here. And I'll bring this up and show you all of those wrinkles. You can see they're just tiny little wrinkles. And again, that's okay. It's kind of the look we're going for. All right. So now what we want to do is make sure that all of our edges are nice and secure. So if you go around and lift it up and you notice that you can pull it away from the sign, we just want to take our brush and add a little more Mod Podge in those areas. So I'm going to just test it, going around, making sure all of my edges are nice and secure. And then we're going to let this dry and we'll work on our pumpkin and letters. And there we go. Okay, that's looking good. All right, so we're going to let this dry and we're going to paint our other pieces. Just put that right up there right now. All right. So in my example, I went the white and the orange, and then obviously the orange pumpkin and whatnot. Remember, this is your sign. You can paint it however you want. So I'm going to grab my makeup sponge that has the orange. I'm going to just start with my orange color because I know I'm going to need to do a couple coats of orange to get a good coverage. So I want to start with that first. I'm not worrying about the stem so much in regards to keeping it clean because the brown will cover the orange when I paint the stem. So it can be a little messy right there. All right, and then I'm going to paint the word pumpkin. Okay, and I'm going to grab my other makeup sponge that I cut from my first one and use the green to paint my leaves. And I'm going to paint the hay green as well. Do something a little different. It's very hard for me to do the exact same thing twice as a crafter. But this way you can kind of see some different options in painting your piece. There we go. Okay, so the pumpkin is dry, so we'll put our second coat on that. All right, so let's go. Oh, I forgot something. Where is my little, oh, there it is. I was thinking I had forgotten a piece. My little vine. There we go. All right, so let's add some detail to our pumpkins. We're gonna grab the liner brush, and I'm gonna start by just putting my stem in. So for the stem, obviously this top piece, but here I'm just going to create a V shape at the bottom. So the stem kind of sits down inside that pumpkin shape just a little bit. So curved V shape. And I'm going to add some jute to this. So a lot of this area is going to get covered up. All right, so then I want to add my lines for my pumpkin shape. So we're creating a C shape here. We're going to start here at the little dimple or indent here, and I'm just going to come up to a C and meet up to that stem piece. So we're going to go C, there we go. And then I'm going to do the other side, going the other way, C down to that little indent at the bottom. Okay. All right, and now let's add some shadows. I'm going to grab a little bit of that orange on my brush, put it aside, and I'm going to add a little of the, that's a little too much. I just want a tiny bit of brown to that orange. And what we're doing is creating a darker orange for some shadow areas on our pumpkin. So I'm going to take that darker orange and just bring it around the bottom. Just kind of gently swishing that along the bottom. You can kind of get it a little thinner as we get to the top. You can see that shadow, it's thick here, thins out as it goes to the top. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to create a thicker shadow along the bottom here. And gradually let that get smaller as we go around and up to the top. Okay, so we've got that shadow. Now we're going to do a shadow down in the middle, and so that's just another C shape, kind of a thicker C. We're going to start at that line we put in and come up and go to the other line. We got this sideways C or even a U shape. And everything below that is in that shadow. Okay. The other place that we have a shadow is kind of here in these little grooves under the stem. I'm just going to add small little U shape of the dark orange under that area there. And you can add it along the top if you want. Kind of just play with that. Now to get those to blend a little bit better, I'm going to go right directly in that orange. Now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to take some of that orange and just come across that area where my shadow starts. Just go back and forth, brushing that in and blending that orange into that to get it to blend just a little bit better, so we don't have such a harsh line. So we're taking that orange, going over the line that we just created and blending back and forth, really not changing where our brush is going. We're just going back and forth over that, and that blends those two colors a little bit better, creates a more softer line. Now I want to soften up my lines where my ridges are. So I'm going to take my orange and just go right over my lines. It just kind of helps push those to the back so they're not so harsh. Just taking that color and going right over it, softening that line up. Okay, then I'm going to dip my brush in some white and just bring in some highlights along the top of my ridges, on the sides. And then I'm also going to add a little white to the top of my stem for a highlight there. Okay, and then that's done for right now. I'm going to take white and add a couple white lines on my vine. A couple small little swooshes here and there for highlights. And then I'm going to wash my brush because we're going to do some shadows and highlights on my stem. So I'm going to grab a little green, grab the smallest amount of brown, mix it together to get a darker green. We're going to use this dark green kind of as that, as the stem and the vine, or the vein that runs down the center of our leaves here. And then you can add a couple lines from those for the veins. And then that's all. It's very small, very subtle little lines. You can hardly see them, but it just helps bring a little dimension to our leaves. Then I'm going to go into the white and add some white highlights as well. Just small little brush strokes around the edges of those leaves. And that's it. You can add some distressing to them if you want. You can add distressing to your letters. I'm going to leave mine as they are. And we're going to come and work on this. Now, once this is dry, we're going to use our sanding block to cut the edges off. So what you're going to do all the way around is you're going to take your sanding block and you're going to start at the top and you're just going to pull it down. And that's going to cut away that tissue paper. Tissue paper is really thin, so it should only take a couple scrapes. And this is flexible. You've got some flexibility with your sanding block that you can push it into these corners to get a nice clean cut. Just gonna pull down. Hold it at an angle on your piece and pull. All right, now we're ready to glue our pieces on. So we're gonna lay those out. Remember when you're taking your pieces off the tape to be super careful. They're very delicate, some of the pieces, and we want to make sure that we don't accidentally break them. Okay, there we go. So once you have all your pieces laid out how you want them, you can start gluing. All right, there we go, guys. I'm going to just press everything down, make sure it's nice and tight. And then I'm going to add a little bow right here. So I'm going to cut a piece of the jute off, and all I'm going to do is separate it. So to separate the jute, there's actually 4 pieces in this jute. I'm just going to start twisting it opposite of what keeps it together, and I'm going to separate those. Kind of want something a little bit thicker here, so I'm going to go all the way down. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've got my 4 pieces here, and I'm just going to wrap it around my finger and create a knot. Just so it looks like it's been tied around. So we get this little knot here. I'm not going to pull it too tight. I kind of want it fat. And I'm just going to squeeze it to make it look a little bigger. And I'm going to play with these pieces here and spread them out. Okay. And then right where that is, I'm going to put that at the base of my pumpkin with a little dab of glue. I'm going to hold that there for a second. Now with fabric like this and super glue, you do have to hold it in place till it sets up, because it's trying to grab all these little fibers, and sometimes it takes just a little bit longer to set up and really secure that in place. Okay, isn't that cute? All right, and then all we have to do, the last step of this project, is tie our hanger on. So depending on how long you want your hanger to be, I just loop it through there, give it a knot, and then we're going to secure it with one more tie, one more loop, one more knot, and pull it tight. I'll do the same on the other side. And so I'm looking to see how long I pull this, to see how long that is going to be, and I don't need it to be that long. So I'm going to shorten it up and then tie this side. Give it one more tie. One more knot, I should say. Pull it tight. And then we'll cut the excess off. All right. So I have these really great tails here, and I'm going to open up those tails and get some really funky ends going here. You can cut your tails shorter if you want, if you don't want to have the tails showing. However you want to do it. But for this side, I think it would be cute to have this match your little side there. And there we go. So here is our Hey Pumpkin side. We did something a little different here. I did the green there. I did white here. And you can also distress your edges. I forgot I did that. So for the edges, you can take a makeup sponge. Let me just show you that here. I'm going to cut the orange off this one. So I've got a brand new makeup sponge. I'm going to grab that brown, and I'm going to make sure it has hardly any in it. And I'm just going to pull it off the edge here. Just kind of round it around, and that's how we can distress the edges. You can also use your chip brush, kind of how we did the frame on the other side. You can use that technique, whatever you prefer. This gives more of a solid color, as the chip brush will give you more of a scratchy finish. And you can definitely bypass this step if you want. There we go. All right. So anyways, here's this side finished. And then this side, we have the Happy Halloween. And you can see the difference here. We did add the shoes at the top, or the sock pieces there. And we went with that more darker purple. There we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this month's Joy Box. I hope you're able to enjoy your crafting time. Oh, thanks for watching, guys, and I look forward to crafting with you next month. Happy crafting!